Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 364, How Disobedience Plagues the Mind, Part 1. How Noncompliance Corrupts Your Physical Mind. The podcast objectives are: prove how disobedience is the most pervasive degree of lawlessness, begin analyzing the evolution of disobedience in the mind, and analyze how noncompliance corrupts your planning zone. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. The most pervasive degree of lawlessness. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 122 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyze the vast importance of spiritual mastery, i.e., the baseline for executing a complete spiritual work. And now we must apply what we learned in that podcast to disobedience. And we must do so for one reason that transcends all the rest. A reason I would encourage you to bookmark if you truly want to be saved. The same way that faith is the most pervasive degree of holiness, disobedience is the most pervasive degree of lawlessness. To wit, every sin you will ever commit will contain a factor of disobedience. James 4:17 is revealing, to him then who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. Now, the key phrase in this verse is, to him who knows to do good and does not do it. This knowledge factor not only establishes a baseline for disobedience, but it is also the foundation of the next revelation I have been led to share. Like doubt, the primary division of our soul, which disobedience is designed to corrupt, is our minds. Notwithstanding, the vast majority of the damage done to our minds is transacted by doubt. Per the diagram to the right, doubt compromises the full breadth of our thought dimension with two exceptions: our senses and our conscience. To wit, they are the only faculties free of red. And thus, the question of the hour is simply this: what impact does disobedience have on our minds, seeing as doubt has already compromised every facet of our thought dimension, save two? Alas, the answer is as disastrous as it is sure. There are two primary faculties disobedience is designed to compromise, although he is really only after one. Enter your planning and execution zones. To sync your physical mind. Now, in validating this statement, I will further prove that disobedience is the most pervasive degree of lawlessness. So, put on your spiritual thinking caps and pay close attention, for I have a wealth of uncommon yet powerful knowledge to share. First of all, I would state that the evolution of disobedience in the mind is much less complicated than the evolution of doubt. And yet, the former is more critical, for you have no hope of stopping it after the evolution of doubt has set things into motion. Per our example of the enemy nation, the invading army of doubt, in this example, has conquered your mind. And in doing so, he has opened the door for disobedience, i.e., the enemy nation, to walk right in. Therefore, seeing as the only hope you have in avoiding the path of disobedience is by disrupting the process, we must execute a deep dive into the process, the same way we did for doubt. To wit, we must analyze the impact of each degree of disobedience. Naturally, we will begin with noncompliance. This degree of disobedience is designed to compromise our planning and execution zones, but more so our planning zone. You can see this by observing the diagram to the right. If you recall, this diagram is a high-level overview of your thought dimension, which we analyzed in prior podcasts. Your planning zone is in your left brain, i.e., your physical mind. It receives output from your thought generation processes, and then it plans how you should act upon an informed thought. On the other hand, your execution zone is in your right brain, i.e., your spiritual mind. It also receives output from your thought generation processes, and then it acts upon the informed thoughts. Reason being, there are some thoughts that don't require planning. Ergo, the planning zone on these occasions is not activated. The thought will go directly into execution. Now, we can confirm that noncompliance is designed to corrupt our planning zone because it is the primary driver of despair. And despair is a factor within our physical mind. You can see this by observing the image to the right. This diagram captures the full effect of doubt in our minds. And you can clearly see how despair is in your left brain. Ergo, as despair is the application of noncompliance, it is also a force within your left brain, wherein lies your planning zone. And this, my friends, is the beginning of the downfall of your physical mind. This is the counter work of despair and noncompliance to sink your physical mind. They will reap the punishment. Now, the manner in which noncompliance corrupts the planning zone of your physical mind is devastating. Vis-a-vis, it gives precedence to your planning zone over your execution zone, which is contrary to the way Yahuwah designed your mind to function. In effect, noncompliance overrides the execution output of your thought generation processes by determining a how factor that is independent of the spiritual output of the thought generation process. Here is why this is so devastating. The spiritual output of the thought generation process must take precedence over the physical output. As we declared aforetime, it is unwise to plan without a vision, i.e., it is impractical to work towards a goal without first identifying the goal. Now, despite the conventional wisdom in this statement, the spirits of despair and noncompliance work in tandem to override this natural process. To wit, these 2 degrees of lawlessness will work to overrule the spiritual output of your thought generation process, more formally known as the vision. It does this by generating plans that do not align with the vision, which is our most accurate perception of the Father's will at this juncture. Now, the question many might be asking is sure, vis-a-vis, if doubt is already plaguing the mind via despair, won't the spiritual output already be compromised? The answer to this critical question is yes. To some degree, the spiritual output will be compromised. However, it will only be compromised to the extent that doubt has corrupted your mind. Along these lines, there will always be an interval in which you are being plagued by doubt, but you have not wholly succumbed to it. Doubt may be constructing strongholds within your mind, but you, my friend, are still in the fight. Now, in this scenario, the spiritual output of your thought generation process may be corrupted in that it is not perfectly aligned with the Father's will, but it will be aligned with a path to bring you back into alignment. Listen to me. This is not only the nature of the war we fight with doubt, but it is also an evolution of the vision. For the path of realignment on this wise is the only path that leads to life. And thus, it requires a vision. For without a vision, we will all perish. And this, my friends, is why noncompliance is such a damning degree of lawlessness. Besides the fact that it compromises our spiritual vision, it is for the following reason, which I trust you will always remember. When we transgress the Father's will in any way, He will always make a way for us to migrate back into His will. He will always make a way for us to be realigned. The enemy knows this, and so he will do his best to deceive you into believing you are better off continuing on a path that best reflects the power of yourself, as opposed to the path of restoration with Elohim. Now, many will read this inflection point and immediately suggest this is an uncommon occurrence in the lives of the extended nation of Israel. Not only do I wholly disagree, but I can also prove the contrary. My dear friends, men and women within this nation are walking in the spirit of noncompliance every hour of every day. The reason why many are unable to recognize this fault is sure, vis-a-vis, they don't have an accurate perspective of disobedience, for they lack spiritual vision, and thus they do not possess an accurate perspective of noncompliance. Therefore, many, if not all of these individuals are daily living their lives in noncompliance to the will of Elohim, and they will reap the punishment they deserve. Now, here is the final word. The greatest question was never why. The question is, will you comply? You must believe me. The evolution of disobedience only gets worse from here. And thus, I would recommend that you comply. The fact that Yahuwah has designed a path of realignment within the way of holiness is another witness to the terrific love and care he has taken to ensure that we, the chosen elect, have all we need to have success. So take my advice and stay in the way of holiness, children of Elohim. For why would you die? Why would you die when all you have to do is look temptation in the face and upon rebuking him say, I will comply? Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today. And as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction. And if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the word of truth we shared. Specifically, I want you to meditate on any areas of non-compliance in your life, areas where you know you are not wholly following the will of Elohim. If there are any areas, I encourage you to repent. Start making your turn away from this point of lawlessness today. And stay tuned, because very soon I will show you how to eliminate disobedience from your life and how you can reign over him the same way you are reigning over doubt. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 364, How Disobedience Plagues the Mind, Part 1. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 365, How Disobedience Plagues the Mind, Part 2. I will post this podcast on November 1st, 2024. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.